Hello, Westminster. My name is Boyd Taylor, and I'm here to talk about the fall edition of the Westminster Writers Journal and visit with one of our contributors. The Writers Journal is a platform for creative expression, whether poetry, nonfiction, memoirs, or fiction, by Westminster residents. And copies of the spring edition, inaugural edition of the journal, are still available in the little store if you haven't picked yours up. Recommend you do so. And the fall edition, with 45 resident contributors, will be arriving in mid-November, Amazon willing. Keep your fingers crossed. My guest today is one of those writers, Floyd Brandt. Floyd is a retired professor of business at the University of Texas. He's a graduate of the Harvard Business School, specialized in management, taught approximately 7,000 students. He calculates on 5 continents. He's written poetry since his teens. He's published many books. He has 10 bound but unpublished. He's well known to our viewers for his monthly column in the Banner about birds. Floyd lives in the Windsor building. He moved there from the Preston, I believe, when the Windsor opened. Good afternoon, Floyd. How are you?
Fine. How are you, Boyd?
Doing just fine. When did you first move to Westminster?
Well, I guess the first actually moved in 2004 and was here 3 years before my wife died.
Yeah.
But we had a place a couple of years before that, so many small places.
Not in house. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't live in a house, but
yeah,
had lots of friends here.
I imagine so. It's a University of Texas stronghold, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think we should put together a shadow board of regents for the university.
A shadow board. It's a pretty good idea. Yeah. Why do you want to have influence on whether we do away with the Eyes of Texas?
We might get involved with that too.
Yeah. Well, so you said you just got back from a walk. How are you getting along in these times of the pandemic? Are you how do you occupy your time?
Well, I have a schedule for just about each day. I find that having something scheduled, times for the various things helps. But I like everybody, I think I get a little bored at times, and but sometimes feel a little sorry for myself for about 10 minutes and figure out what else to do then.
Yeah.
It's going fine.
I like the idea of a schedule. I like to keep busy, and if I have things to do, it helps me at any rate to stay active. So what are you working on in the literary area now?
Well, several things. I'm trying to sort out some of the poetry I haven't gotten in on my computer yet. So I'm working a little some on that, on digest. I send out one of those every week. And
tell me about that. That's limited. Is that what you published for the 5th floor?
Yes, I started it when we got quarantine went into effect. So I've been writing. Well, I started out two a week, and now I'm about 1 a week now. So I think I'm up to number 60 now.
Really? And where's the material coming from?
Comes from all my book, really my book I put together couple 3 years ago, titled "Letters from a Pilgrim," and these were the letters after my wife died, and I started traveling by myself all over as far as Virginia and California, and mainly the Southwest, interviewing looking for people to talk to, and writing about what it's not just a travel log, but mainly conversations and So now I'm adding some to them. I found out I didn't have time to look up all the resources and validate everything. And I'm doing
Yeah.
that now. I'm putting them in these digests. I mean, the gazettes.
So people respond. Most people are willing to open up and talk to you.
I've only had one person decline, and that,
Yeah.
and so I find out a lot of them. Well, I'm busy, but yeah, sit down, have breakfast. Yeah, I usually catch them in a breakfast room at a motel, sometimes in a cafe beside,
So it's together with coffee or a meal. You've got a reason to join them or sit down and talk to them.
and usually they were older men, who were doing much the same thing I was sometimes,
Yeah.
but they either meeting, sometimes I'd get with a group that were having coffee together. And
I would think the group would be interesting, but a little more difficult because there's all these inside jokes and people know each other, and that sort of thing. But
I've had some great interviews with individuals, who had. It's amazing. I'm always amazed at how they'll talk to a perfect stranger and tell some of the most intimate things.
well, they probably tell you things they wouldn't tell a good friend because they figure you're going to get in the car and go away.
I think that's true. Some people you meet on airplanes or a lot of places.
Oh gosh, I'm sure we could share airplane trips, but
My best one was a trip to Chicago, and a priest came in and sat down next to me.
a priest.
I took confession from him all the way to Chicago, and never did tell him I was a Presbyterian elder.
Well, he might have known that. He might have figured it was safe, but you weren't going to report him to this bishop, I don't guess. So,
No, some of the things he told me would not have stood him in good stead. So
yeah, I'm sure you and I have a connection going back to Pampa in the Panhandle. People know where that is. It's 50 miles northeast of Amarillo, or as we like to tell our friends, halfway between Dallas and Denver. And the people in the east would say, "Oh yes, I know where that is." So they had no idea of the distances involved. But at any rate, you were born and went to high school there, and your family father was in the business there.
well,
Connected with the oil service business or oil.
actually, I was born to
You were born.
oil supplies.
Yeah, you weren't.
I
Were
was
you
born in
actually?
Detroit, actually.
You weren't actually born in Pampa. Is that what you said?
No,
Yeah.
I came to Oklahoma when I was 6 and to Pampa when I was 7.
Well, that's all right, I guess. But I was trying. There was always were the Greeks? Did the Greeks have the hot dog and fast food place when you were in Pampa? The
Yes.
Geekuses? Yeah.
Coney Island. Coney Island.
The Coney Island, yeah. Well, there was a lot of coffee drunk and tales told in that place, if I remember right. Yeah.
I think there was a little ptomaine poisoning from time to time too.
We were back up there a couple of years ago, and it's still there, but the booths have gotten a lot smaller, I noticed, than they were when I was young and living there. I could barely squeeze into the booths. But,
yeah. Well, last time I was up, I saw this bit. They have a big billboard outside of Pampa saying, "Where the wheat grows, the oil flows, and the wind blows."
It's all true. Some more than other, but the wind blows all the time. So anyway, what was it like there when you were growing up?
Well, it was at the tail end of an oil boom. There was still a lot of oil activity, but not the drilling. And of course, I had a little fracking boom here lately. But the real oil boom came in the 20s and it was oil field was on decline. As I was growing up there, that's great for supply salesmen.
Yeah. Well, it's a boom and bust business, uh, and activity up there has come back and then gone away again, I guess. But so
Well, it was a boom town, and boom towns always leave a sense of temporariness. When the oil runs out, we're going to leave. And so most of the buildings were kind of temporary. A lot of them were at that point.
yeah. Well, I always contrasted Pampa with Borger. Pampa seemed more of a permanent place. I mean, more of a community to me than just than Borger. But that was just me, I guess. Phillips had a big presence over there, but that was about it. Um, so let's move on then. You left Pampa. You went to college. You went west, I think, to school, and then to the Midwest. Somewhere in there, you had a military career. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I finished my master's degree at Michigan.
Michigan, yeah.
And I had a couple of the deferments, and since my father had been in the Marine Corps, I figured I better get in the service and serve a little bit. So I enlisted, went in as a private, went through basic training.
In the Army?
And yes.
Uh-huh.
And after I finished basic training, they put me on a desk for a while, and then they offered me the opportunity to go to OCS. So I went to Officer Candidate School and graduated from there. I wouldn't go through that again for a whole truckload of bars, but I wouldn't take anything for the experience.
Yeah.
And after that, I was at various places at Camp Sill and Fort Riley, and then we got shipped to Colorado Springs, and we was selected, and I became aide to General Heiser. So served as aide to him, I think, for the better part of 2 years, which was a real learning experience too.
How was that?
Well, I define the job as a very simple job definition. No surprises for the general. And it just was, anytime he was out of his quarters, I was with him. So, and he was not too far from retirement. So we had a pretty good relationship, and a lot of interesting things happened. But, and that was a good experience because it helped very much a little bit later when I went to the university. Spent 4 years as assistant to the president. It was just about the same kind of thing. No surprises.
Yeah. Well, at least you understood the job. You had that experience. So.
Well, it was a good experience.
Yeah. So at what point in your career did you decide that you were going to teach?
I think it probably when I was in the military. I'd had some pretty good job offers. I finished my master's, and I don't know, there was something began to appeal to me. So I remember telling my dad, though, I said, I told him I was going to Harvard to get my doctorate so I could get back from university teaching. And his instructions to me were, that's the way you get to be a communist. You go to Harvard and turn left.
Get to be a communist? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes.
Was he wasn't right.
No, but he had a tremendous sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, we had a family member of the company that I worked for came down, and he was a Harvard man, and he had to spend time in the field, and so they sent him up to Kansas to buy some leases, and of course he couldn't buy any leases. He didn't know what he was doing, and so our landman went back up there to clean up after him, and they said, what happened to that crazy guy from Boston that came down here. And Johnny said, "Oh, we had to let him go." So there's they have a skeptical eye toward the Northeast, I think, in that part of the country. Yeah.
The Cabot's had a real link with Harvard. Did you know Jimmy McCune?
I did know Jimmy. He was in the labor relations or personnel department, something like that.
Well, he was a scoutmaster.
He was your scoutmaster. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And there was another person, I can't remember his name now, but anyway, Jimmy took it on himself and contacted Louis Cabot. And he wrote one of the letters of recommendation for me to go to Harvard. So,
well, that's
and I got to know him. I wrote a case about the Cabot. And
oh, you wrote a case study on Cabot?
Yes.
Yeah. How did it turn out?
Well, we used it.
Good. No, I meant the product, the case.
I don't.
Don't remember. It was a profit maker for.
I was in research, not in sales. So
yeah, it was a profit maker, I think, for a long time. So I'm sure Jimmy McCune would not have would not have done what he did if he didn't believe that you were going to be a real, you're going to do really well up there. And of course, the Cabots had, they were on the board of, not the board of trustees, but overseers. I can't remember what they call it.
Overseers.
Yeah, Tom Cabot was, and I believe the dean of the business school typically was on the Cabot board of directors. So Harvard owned Harvard owned a lot of Cabot stock, so it was a good relationship. Well, I'm glad that all worked out. So in addition to a career in teaching and traveling all over the world and teaching on most of the continents, at some point you developed an interest in bird watching. Were you what you would call a birder, or what is your interest going out in the field and spotting birds? Or
well, yes, but not now.
Well, not now. You look out your window now.
Yeah, I do it out the window, or I do it on the internet. But
can you bird watch on the internet? How does that work?
Well, there's tremendous pictures of birds, and so it's and a lot of identification and a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
So, but no, I started in Boy Scouts. I must have been about 13, 14. It was the first merit badge I got toward my Eagle Scout badge. So,
was in birds?
Yes, it was in bird study.
Yeah.
And my real interest, I think I may mention it last time, was that when the director of the Scout camp in the summer was Lake Marvin up near Canadian, and the director of the camp came in and said, there's a guy here who wants to go study birds on the lake around the creeks around here. Would you go with him for a day or so? I did, and he was the head ornithologist of Smithsonian Institute.
From Smithsonian?
Yeah, I spent 2 days paddling canoe for him, and I learned more about bird watching, about birds in that 2 days with him. Tremendous.
What a great opportunity. Yeah. And you seized it. So you had that interest then ever since. Well, everybody enjoys your articles in the Banner. And Janie Flack has a bird watching story in this journal. It's about the time a blue-footed booby showed up at their lake house up on Lake Travis. And apparently it caused such a sensation that it was in the paper, and people came for the birds stayed there for months camping out on a diving board of our neighbor's swimming pool. So they had.
Well, interesting enough, I guess about 5, 6, 7, I don't know, years ago, I wrote that up because he's now native of Texas, because he spent enough time here to be there, and then flew up somewhere else and disappeared. But
that's right.
That was quite a story, quite a event when that bird sitting on the diving board of the swimming pool.
Well, Janie's article is really, really interesting. And so that's in the journal. So you mentioned traveling, talking to people. Your story for the fall edition is involves such a person. It's entitled Jim, and it's a conversation at a coffee shop in Chapel Hill, Texas.
Yes.
Which I've driven down that road a lot of times, but I don't think I've ever been in that particular coffee shop. I imagine that there's several just like it up and down the road.
It's the only one I think in Chapel Hill.
In Chapel Hill, yeah, I guess so. But you might could go to Hempstead or someplace there.
But
So
Boyd, that's still one of my favorite experiences because all sorts of things started happening with his comments and his stories about his girlfriends and his
yeah,
friends, his bass fishing,
and I suppose each one of those interviews that you that you found yourself conducting informal interviews, coffee with strangers in places all over the country, and particularly in that part of the country. Each one has a unique character, but I suspect, are there some common themes that seem to run through them when you get a stranger talking to you like that?
well, yes, mainly I'm impressed really with the friendliness and their willingness to share.
Mm-hmm.
And there was much more similarity than differences. I didn't run across anybody that was really well, maybe one or two who were highly negative.
Yeah.
And they lived their lives. They tend to be a little bit older. They lived their lives and seemed to be reasonably settled with that. And most of them are in small towns. That was I love to visit small towns and also to visit ghost towns. So
Ghost towns.
yes, there's about 900 of them in Texas, so I could be busy for a long time.
So what's your favorite ghost town?
I think probably it's Helena.
Where?
Helena's down there. It's down sort of south, east Texas, down below Lockhart, and that heading that
Yeah.
road down there. But the reason it was because it was a main road on the ox cart trail up from Mexico City all the way. And this was one of the main places. These two guys kind of started a little store there and started the town. And it was known for a long time as the meanest town in the world, or meanest town in Texas.
That's quite a reputation.
It's famous for what they call the Helena duel. The way they settle the problems, they would take a piece of rawhide, tie the left wrists together, give each of the guys a knife with a 3-inch blade, which wasn't quite long enough to reach vital organs, and they'd start slashing, and the last one standing won. Because both of them often died, but
oh my goodness.
But with the wrists tied together like a couple of baby roosters, I guess.
That's a true story, huh?
Oh yeah, they had, and it was a spectator sport also. Yeah. They would take bets on who's going to win. It was not it's not the kind of place I would look forward to.
They were short of them on entertainment. My goodness. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of stories left to tell from your journeys, and I hope when the pandemic is over, you'll be able to resume your travels and continue talking to people, because we enjoy hearing the reports of those. So I think we're about out of time. I want to thank you for being here today and visiting with me. It's always good to meet somebody else from Pamplin.
So, well, thank you, Boyd. Thank you for what you're doing with the journal and for all the other things you do around here.
Well, the journal is a labor of love, and it's got a lot of people that work on it, and of course, all the people that write for it. And so, I think it's something that I hope will be able to continue. And we look forward to your contributions in the future also. So thanks again. So
Thank you.
all of you watching out there, the Writers Journal Fall Edition will be here in a matter of weeks, and we'll keep you advised. And so this is Boyd Taylor saying thank you again to Floyd Brandt, and thanks to all of you Westminster residents for tuning in. We'll see you soon. And by all means, stay safe and stay well.